Welcome and good evening. We're glad that you're here and we're about to get started. I am grateful for you all to be here. I'm Pastor Drew Ingram. I'm tonight just the one welcoming you and introducing the evening. But I'll take this moment to acknowledge that we're so grateful for Matthew and for his time here, and that this is one of the, we're into the season of last things, and as he's about 6 Sundays away from his last Sunday here serving Christ Lutheran Church as our director of worship and music and principal organist. And so we are so grateful for all of those years and for the support of you all here tonight. We're going to get to enjoy some wonderful organ recitals. We're going to get to hear stories, not just from 40 years here at Christ Lutheran Church, but from, can you imagine he played organ other places before here too? And so we're so grateful for this evening. I'm so grateful for you, Matthew, and for the opportunity to be here tonight. And also, I've been asking him, I'm like, what are the things we can do for you as a congregation to help celebrate you in this season? And one, he told me he's going to tell you more about his book. It's really ready now. Buy the book. Buy the book. That's simple. And then actually the second piece is then buy 3 more copies and give them to your friends. Okay, but we do want to support him and these wonderful stories. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Matthew for the evening.
Thank you so much, Pastor Drew. I appreciate it. So we're going to start off with some Bach. But first I want to say that it's so refreshing, isn't it, to have the pastor do the prelude. And then I get to do my thing. So we're going to start with some Bach, and then I'll explain a few things after we get a start here. Okay? All right. ahead and give me that next slide, please.
Oh, it's not a mic test?
No. All right, here we go. So, the first thing you need to know is I'm here tonight not to play a concert. So if you showed up today expecting a concert, then Pastor Drew has already said he'll give you a full refund. And the reason is because I'm actually a church organist. There was a point in my life when I thought I might be interested in, doing concert work, but then I discovered that I'm not. I love the process of playing for a worship service, and it's partly because it presents a challenge that playing concerts doesn't really have, or at least not very much. Okay, so think about a concert artist. They show up at a venue, they play their program pretty much straight through, maybe there's an intermission, and then they leave. But think about what a church organist is all about. A church organist is all about being practical and just making everything work. So I found that very early in my life, I loved the process of going to a worship service where no matter how carefully you plan or practice, weird things happen. And just making it work on my part on the bench. So I'm playing tonight as a church organist, which means you're going to find plenty of mistakes. And if all goes well, the thing that you might enjoy most is how well I recover from all the mistakes and end the piece anyway, as you just witnessed. So the second thing I want to do now is introduce I think I have another slide for this. Introduce the theme. The theme for tonight is behind the scenes, and I'm going to remind you of this periodically because every so often I'm going to play some music and then I'm going to tell some stories and I'm going to tell you that it's BS. Okay? Behind the scenes. You were warned. It's behind the scenes. You're warned. All right. So a lot happens behind the scenes. We're going to get into that in a minute. Behind the scenes, all kinds of scenes behind those scenes. But it's all pretty much BS. So let me have another slide, and I have good news and bad news. This is the cover of my memoir, the title of which is Benched, a mostly true account of 50 years as a church organist. That was when I wrote the title. It was 50 years. It's now just about 54. It will be 54 years on the first Sunday of September. As Pastor Drew pointed out, I know it's hard to believe, but I had a life before before becoming organist at Christ Lutheran. I played for all kinds of churches, a synagogue, Hindu temple. I mean, I did a lot of music, religious music, and what it all had in common is that same sort of pragmatic, you just sit on the bench and make everything work as best you can, right? And why, you might ask, would I say a mostly true account? Well, there's a couple of things. One, you know how memory works, right? The more you remember something, the more it becomes true. So I'm telling stories the way I remember them, but I am quite confident that other people have other memories that they would assert are as valid and true as mine. And I'm okay with that because I don't really think we need to, I didn't want to write a memoir that's like a chronology, like this happened, then that happened, then something else happened, thank you for coming, goodbye. I wanted to write stories, and I'm going to tell a few of those stories tonight, right? So for instance, let's move to the next one, and I'll tell you another couple of things. So this back cover really fascinates me because I don't know if you can see it in here, but this, according to my white trash granny, I have a grandmother who identified herself to my friends. She would say, "I'm Matthew's white trash grandmother." So I feel comfortable saying what she called herself. She's my white trash granny, but she had this instrument and forgot about it. She put it away. And after my grandfather died, she was digging through some closets and cleaning up things, and she found it again. And she called me and she said, I found your piano. And I was like, okay, what? So she told me all about this. So here's the story that she told me. I was inseparable from this instrument that you see. I took it everywhere as a small child, and I annoyed people endlessly by accompanying everything everybody did on this little 8 keys. But here's the fascinating thing, and this is one of the reasons that the subtitle resonates for me. The fascinating thing is, are you ready for this? I don't remember this instrument at all. I have no memory of it at all. For all I know, that's not even mine. But it's a great story, and it also illustrates exactly how memory works. In this case, I'm depending on a received memory. This is the story that I heard all my life. Matthew used to carry his piano around. So I still have the piano, but I don't recognize it. So now, what I'd like to do is let's have a little, with those sort of preliminaries out of the way, the disappointing part. The disappointing part is it is not actually out on Amazon or the Apple, the bookstore yet, because of delays of various kinds. There's a million details you have to get worked out. So it is finished. I'm not actually changing anything else, but I'll have to let you know as soon as it's available, which I hope will be in the next few weeks, and surely before I take my leave from this bench, okay? So now let's pause for a moment for a little BS. Now, I've warned you about this. That's behind the scenes. I want to tell the story of how I got this job at Christ Lutheran, partly because I think it's hilarious. So indulge me. I'm going to entertain myself and possibly the rest of you. So I had been in graduate school in Chicago and moved back to Texas to go to grad school at University of Texas in philosophy. And I got a call from my dad, as a matter of fact, who said that the word was out at Emmanuel, which was my home church as a kid in Killeen, Emmanuel Lutheran in Killeen. The word was out that Christ Lutheran is looking for an organist, and he said you should call him. So I thought, okay, I'll call. So I called, and a lovely woman answered the phone, and I said, I'm Matthew, and I heard that you are hiring an organist, and I'd like to, be considered. I've been an organist, blah, blah, the way you do, trying to look good and competent. And and she said to me, well, it's too bad we didn't hear from you sooner because actually we've got an organist. And, but she said, but the thing is, our new organist can't start for 2 Sundays, so would you be willing to substitute? And so I said, yeah, I'll play. I did lots of substituting. You can find out more about all the substituting that organists do. Usually when organists are on vacation, they go substitute for some other organist who's on vacation. So it's sort of like musical benches. Anyway, so, I just moved back to town. I was eager to play the organ again. So I came over here, got to know the organ a little bit at the Allen. This woman introduced me to people and so on. And so I sat down to play the organ thinking it was, a couple of Sundays at most, and I'd be looking for a regular organ job elsewhere, okay? So we played the service. That's me and my fingers and hands. I played the service, and after the service, this dude came up, and I really don't know who it is, but he introduced himself as the president of the council, and he had these other 2 dudes with him who were either officers or bodyguards. And he said to me, we'd like to offer you the organist job. And I said, well, I thought you already found an organist. And he said, we may have. But we're offering it to you. And so I thought for a minute, this is a little weird because, as an organist, I don't want to like steal an organ job out from under another organist. And I said, are you really sure about this? Is this okay? He said, no, we want to hire you. So I accepted the job. And I'd like to just go on record now saying, would-be possible organist, whoever you are out there, I'm sorry. I hope I've lived up to your expectations. I've never learned from anyone who that was, and I really don't want to know because, as you probably know, guilt is a lot easier to bear when it doesn't have an actual face. So I don't want to know who it was, but whoever you are, would-be organist, I hope I've lived up to your expectations. I've certainly made 40 years of effort. Okay. Now, a quick story from the early days of my time here. I can't get my iPad to cooperate, which is kind of bad because I'm going to play from it. I've probably been the official organist about a month. And at that time, 40 years ago, Christ Lutheran had a pastor, Tim Van Antwerp, whom I know some of you know. Tim was kind of interested in, or he was a bit of a stickler for formality and so on. So he told me, even when I substituted, he told me I had to wear a robe to play the organ. Now, it's like a choir robe, except it has these cuffs that go right around your wrist so that you can, play the organ, right? But what it doesn't have is a very, tight hem. So, about the fourth or fifth Sunday, I'm sitting over there in my robe, really hot, and I had to make a quick change from the Allen organ to the piano because we were doing a liturgy that involved the piano. And I turned really fast and jumped off the organ bench, and the hem of the robe caught the organ bench, and I pulled the organ bench over and it fell with a huge loud, but worse still, I fell in the floor and literally rolled into the piano bench, which then hit the piano, crashed, sounded like a train wreck of a freight train loaded with pianos, and I sort of picked myself up and quickly put the bench back, and then we carried on with the liturgy. Okay, so remember I told you, organists are pragmatic. We just make things work, right? So after church that Sunday, the same dude who offered me the job and said maybe we came over to the organ, and he said, I think we can do without the robe. And I've always thought that it had less to do with my well-being and more to do with the church's liability insurance. All right, let's get back to the organ. So here's what I'm going to do. If you'll turn the next slide on for me. I'm going to play a piece by Johann Walter. Now, I know that some of you, especially if you've read some of my music minutes or talked to me or, couldn't run away fast enough. I love this guy. He is roughly a contemporary of Bach. Bach was born 1 year before Bach, and he died 2 years before Bach died. So he's just about a contemporary of Bach. But I love his music, and one of the reasons I love his music is because everybody's heard of people like Beethoven and Bach and all that kind of stuff, but nobody has heard of Johann Walter. So it makes me seem smart and competent. If I know, right? So, no, actually, the truth is, his music is just magnificently structured. So, I'm going to feature several pieces by Walter tonight. This first one is lovely. I'm going to play it for you, and then I'll tell you a couple of things about it. There are actually two. This is a chorale prelude. So, in Lutheran music, especially in the 17th and 18th century German Baroque Lutheran tradition, what people would do is take a hymn tune, in this case, this hymn, Max mit mir, this hymn, he would take that tune and then turn it into a piece of music using various sorts of compositional tricks, right? So like some imitation, it's a little bit like a fugue, it has all kinds of structural features to it. So the actual tune of it is in the hymnal, if you want to have a look. It may not do you that much good, but at least you'll know what the tune sounds like. It's this tune. It's 799. All right, come follow me, the Savior spake. You know this tune? That's the tune. So that is the tune that Walter is going to be playing with. And so let's see if you can pick out the way he does this. All right. So here we go. So I've already told you the BS about how I got this job. I thought I might remind you that, so BS, right? Behind the scenes. It was BS in a different sense, too. I mean, it was what I told you was true, but it was BS in the sense that it was before Sandy. Yes, I have been here even longer than Sandy has. Right. Now let me turn to another Walter piece. I can't. To some extent, my sort of professorial personality goes with me everywhere, and I can't turn it off. I'm sort of powerless to turn it off, and people tell me that all the time. So I wanted to share with you that this next piece is a set of chorale preludes. There are 4 of these. And these 4 illustrate in a really lovely way the various compositional techniques that German Baroque composers used to dress up these tunes for chorale preludes. So you might be thinking, okay, well, we hear this word a lot, chorale prelude, I talk about it, what does it actually mean? Well, it originated when organists did basically like a fancy introduction to a hymn that the congregation was going to sing. So that's where it started. And, I do that sometimes. I, play a little extra special thing to introduce a hymn. But over time, that extra fancy introduction evolved into a standalone musical piece that people wrote to explore the different possibilities of a tune. And there were different compositional techniques that people did. So the first 2 of this, there are 4 that I'm going to play. The first 2 of these are somewhere between what we call a fuguetta, which is like a fugue, except it takes the tune and it uses it against itself to create the accompaniment, right? Not against itself like they're fighting. It's against, meaning that's the setting, right? The tune becomes the accompaniment to the tune. And another compositional style that is a little bit more where the solo voice has the tune and so on. The third one I'm going to play is a really great example of what's called the ornamented tune style. So what happens here is you've got an accompaniment, and then the tune is presented in a different voice with lots of ornaments, like fancy stuff, trills and things. And then the fourth one is a style called cantus firmus, and this is where the tune appears in really long notes while the rest of the composition is playing, is doing the accompaniment. In this particular case, on the fourth one, my feet are going to play the tune. And just in case it's occurring to you to ask, wouldn't it be easier to just play the tune with your hands and let your feet, do the bass notes? It would if you, unless you're an organist. So organists treat the feet as an equal party to the hands. So a lot of times I will play the tune with the feet and just use the registration to make the tune stand out, as I hope you'll be able to tell. So that's the fourth one of these. All right, so here we go. So I hope you're becoming as enamored of Johann Walter as I am. I love his music. It's wonderful. So now let's have another BS interlude. How many of you remember the April Fool's Talent Show? Anybody who remember? Yeah, remember the April Fool's Talent Show. You don't. Those of you who don't remember it, you know why? You probably weren't here. So here's the thing. We had for a long time. I think we did it. I don't know. Like 5 years running or something? Yeah. We did an April Fool's talent show, and I sort of organized it. And basically, it was really an excuse to get kids to perform on their instruments in a very low stakes sort of environment, because it was April Fool's. So pretty much anything went. And there were things like, I'm so glad you're here, because one of the things that I have such a fond memory of this. Do you remember the beer monica? Yes. So we played the beer monica. Anybody know what the beer monica is? It's what is your idea?
I think it's a harmonica made out of beer bottles.
That is exactly what it is. We took a bunch of beer bottles and we filled them to various heights to tune the beer bottles. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think we played Pachelbel's Canon, seriously, on the beer monica. Now, beer bottles come in certain sizes, so we did have to extend the lower register with some wine bottles. But, yeah, we played Pachelbel's Canon. Do you remember, how many of you remember me introducing the Cranberry Hymnal? This is ELW that we use. Yeah, do you remember the big book of literature? Do you remember that? Huge. And remember Luisa, so I had my daughter Luisa, I don't know what, she was about 9 maybe. She came out carrying this enormously oversized book that I had covered in cranberry colored cloth. And I told everybody that it was the Pew edition. And to save time and effort on everybody's part, the Pew edition contained sermons for every Sunday of the year and all the festivals. Yep, that was fun. How about this? Do you remember me of giving? Everybody remember our dear friend Helen, who alas is no longer with us? Helen. Okay. Well, here's a story on Helen. Helen moved here from a different church, and for months and months and months, Helen would give me a to-the-minute account of how much over 60 minutes the service ran, right? Because in her old church, she told me frequently, the service was 60 minutes tops. Even if there was festivals, baptism, confirmation, didn't matter, 60 minutes tops, and everybody was out of there for breakfast. So at the April Fool's Talent Show, I made a special effort to get her to come. She came. And unknown to her, I gave her an award. It was the Christ Lutheran Timekeeper Award, and she got her a stopwatch. Yeah, she slowed down on giving me the account here. But I'll tell you what, there's one thing that I am particularly proud of. I know many of you, maybe most of you, are parents. So get this. This is one of my proudest moments as a church musician. Luisa was sitting out in the audience during one of these, and I did something. I don't even know what it was. Maybe I played the piano, sang something, I don't know anyway. And I have it on very good authority that Luisa, at the end of my thing, turned to Natalie and said, he's actually pretty good. When your own child turns to someone and says, he's actually pretty, I think you've hit pretty much the limit. Okay, let's go back to the organ. I'm going to play yet another Walter Chorale. This one is Christus der ist mein Leben. I love this tune. I think you'll see why. It's such a beautiful meditative piece, so you can let me know what you think.
I have to find it.
Okay, here we go. Isn't that lovely? That's just a lovely piece of music. And it also is one of those where my feet are playing the tune. I don't know if you can see, from where you are. Okay, let's have another round of BS, okay? So I wanted to list a few of my fond and hilarious moments. They were hilarious to me. I don't think they were hilarious to everyone involved. But some of you may remember this if you've been here at or near as long as I have. Many years ago, we had a substitute pastor during Advent. I don't remember the circumstances because I've slept since then. But the regular pastor was gone. We had a substitute. It was Advent. He came over to me before the service and he said, "Just go with me here." And I'm like, okay. That's all he said. Just go with me here. Okay, so I just want you to picture this. It's Advent. Sunday morning. First Sunday of Advent. And we had the readings. And he had asked the reader for that day to read the gospel lesson, which, as you probably know, the usual pattern is whoever's going to do the sermon reads the gospel lesson, right? But the reader read the gospel lesson and sat down, and he, the pastor, the sermonizer, was nowhere to be found. Like, he was gone. I mean, he had sneaked out the door, and he was gone. And seconds passed, and they seemed longer than seconds, but probably not more than a minute or so before some, communal-minded, well-meaning person came running over to the organ and said, "Play some music because we don't know where the pastor is." I, on the other hand, had figured this out. So I just sat there resolutely refusing to play any cover music, right? Two more people came up and said, "Play some music." I mean, it got louder, and then pretty soon people are talking, and pretty soon it sounded like, I was playing the prelude, except there was, I'm sorry, that's an old organist joke, okay? Here's the organist joke, and it works for pretty much any denomination that likes organ music, but I'll use Lutherans because I have the most experience with that. So how do you get a group of Lutherans to talk to each other again? Tell them it's the prelude. There's a thinly veiled aggression about the fact that, you work on your prelude and then people mostly talk through it. But like it's dinner music. Anyway, so here's everybody talking. And finally, I'd say probably halfway into the allotted sermon time, 13 or 14 minutes, he just strode out from went to the sermonizing spot with his microphone and just stood there. And when people quieted down, he said, "Brothers and sisters, welcome to the season of Advent." Okay, who gets the joke? What do we do at Advent? Wait. Yes. I had to do everything in my power to restrain myself from busting out laughing at that. The reactions were fantastic. That's a wonderful moment. Another series of memories that I have that now are fond and hilarious, but not necessarily at the time, is how many of you remember the old Allen organ? The old Allen organ. Yes, it was a 700 series Allen, still in service. It had been made in about 1972 or 73, and for much of the early part of my time at Christ Lutheran, this was a very frugal congregation, which is a nice way of saying they didn't want to pay for any maintenance on the organ. So I became the organ technician as well as the organist. And about once a quarter, I would come up here with a can of compressed air and blow the dust out of the contacts in the Well, the keyboard got worse and worse and worse, and pretty soon it just stopped playing. I couldn't get it to play, so I went to various presidents over the next 2 years. It's like, we have to do something about the organ because I can barely get it to play. And pretty soon I was having to, squirt air into the contacts every Sunday morning before the service started. So finally, two or so turnovers of counsel later, it's like, okay, let's call a technician. So we call a technician, and the dude, I'm not exaggerating. The dude walked in, unlocked and opened the Allen, and he said, well, there's your problem right there. I was like, what? And he said, this keyboard was recalled. And I said, it was? And he said, 15 years ago. And I'm like, what can we do? And he said, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if anybody has one of these anymore. Let me see what I can do. So he put out the word in the Allen Technicians Network. It's a shady bunch. And I get this call 2 or 3 weeks later, and he said, you are not going to believe this, but this friend of mine who has a friend who has this other friend, I mean, seriously, it sounded exactly like a drug deal. You know, we found one in a warehouse in Toronto. They only have one. They didn't know they had it, or they wouldn't have it, and they'll give it to us, but we have to pay shipping. So then, you see what's coming, right? So then the discussion started over, could we pay shipping? So finally we got this keyboard here, and I am 100% serious. He showed up with his keyboard. I met him up here. He walked over to the organ. The organ, basically, it had kind of a lid. You open the lid. He opened the lid, reached down in here, and unhooked 2 little things, and just slid the whole keyboard out like it was a plug-in mechanism. Unpacked the other one, plugged it in. Alan played. Took less than 10 minutes. Plus the 15 years. Let's see. I was so active there, I got... Oh, yeah, I really want to mention this. Really, one of the great joys and a high point, I'll always remember these things, is getting kids involved playing instruments at the church. So if you go through the music library in there, you'll find who knows how many arrangements of choir anthems and hymns and various things that I made so I could get kids involved. And just think of all the kids who have pastored. I mean, we had, Janie, your kids played. I mean, we made so much music together. At one time, we had a bunch of string players, and it was a family package, We just had the whole family of string players. It's really been such a great joy to see all these kids, and it's continued right up to the present moment, really, because just on Sunday, Derek dragged his dad, Drew, over to me to show me his newly rented violin, and he's like all pumped about playing the violin. It's just such a joy to see kids play. But I do have one story I want to share with you that I think is just priceless, okay? So were any of you here? I know some of you were here, but do you remember when we did a Christmas program based on Beatles songs? Right? And the main theme of the Christmas program was Here Comes the Sun, S-O-N. Seriously, I rewrote the lyrics on all, right? Okay, so we called for volunteers, and we had people, we had a double bass. We were putting together this band to play all these Beatle tunes. And one Sunday after church, okay, this is just hysterical. One Sunday after church, this kid came over. She couldn't have been more than about, I guess, maybe 11. She came up to me with her mom, and she said, I want to play in the music program. And I said, well, that's great. What do you play? And she said, I play the violin. And I said, that's wonderful. How long have you been playing the violin? Because, I'm trying to assess what level I'm going to have to write a part for. And she said, oh, a long time. I had my first lesson last week. Now, what's funny about that is that in a kid's mind, first of all, this is a kid's mind, but I'm going to tell you something. Why don't you try playing the violin for a week and see how your fingers are going to feel like it's a lot longer than a week. So, because until you build up some calluses, it actually hurts, right? To try to play. I mean, you have to get used to that, right? So I said, all right, you know what? You're going to play. So, Janie, you remember this? We had the ensemble, right? It was kind of right here. And I stationed the young violinist right next to me And she had this part, these big, enormous whole notes. She would, and at every bar, I would whisper down to her, A string 1. So that she didn't know where to put her fingers. It was just priceless. She was, okay, so now, the sequel to that story, though, is even cooler than that. It was wonderful. I was delighted to be able to get such a, really a beginner, but just imagine how she felt playing with like the big people, right? It was wonderful. Except about 2 weeks after Christmas, I get this random call at the church. Would you call so and so back? So I called back, not knowing who it was. It was her violin teacher, and she said, "I don't know what you did, but this kid is on fire for the violin now. She's just like, it's." That is a thing that is just worth so much to me. It's been amazing to get kids involved like that. Okay, let's see. What do we want to do here? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a piece by Walter. Let's go to the next one, Walter. This piece by Walter is not built on a chorale. In other words, a tune. Like a liturgical tune. This is a piece of just pure organ music by Johann Walter, and I wanted to include this partly because this is one of the very rare pieces in the 17th and 18th century literature where, okay, ready for this? Normally, the pedal plays one line, one note at a time, right? But in this piece, Walter includes a little passage where the feet have to play 2 lines at the same time, 2 melodic lines against each other. And so it's been like great fun to see if I could get my feet to do this, and we're about to find out. All right, so here we go. The Walter Prelude and Fugue in C major. I don't know if you could hear it very well, but my feet knew it, I can tell you. All right. So now I'd like to turn to another kind of BS. From time to time, some of you already know this, but just the privileged few. From time to time, I get inspired to write parodies of hymns. Now, I want to describe what has happened here, okay? So, every week we have a worship planning meeting that involves all the people who have roles to play, and we plan the worship service. And I wrote a particular parody for the Blessing of the Keys, sung to the tune Swim Rhonda. That's Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah. And I love the name of the tune. As a kid, I used to love the name of the tune, Swim Rhonda, because it's spelled C-Y-M. You know that thing they taught you in elementary school about, the vowels are A-E-I and A-E-I-O-U and sometimes W and Y. Well, this is the only word I've ever seen where W seems to be like actually a vowel. So it's the name of this tune. Anyway, for some strange reason, this Blessing of the Keys has never made it into the worship service. I can't imagine why, but we are actually going to sing this together. So this is the sing-along aspect of this evening. So the lyrics are going to be up there. I'm sure you'll be able to follow along. Even if you don't know what Swim Rhonda sounds like, you will by the time I get through with the little intro. Okay? So. Yeah, right. It's not that one. It's not that one. Okay, here we go. Whoops, got to turn something on. Okay, here we go. I cannot imagine why the worship team has not included that in the worship service. I think it's just about perfect. And the ELW is due for an update. Tell them to call me. All right. And this is, incidentally, this is only the beginning. You have no idea. You have no idea. I do this at ACC too, by the way. I'm known for it. All right. So now I want to play a couple of chorale preludes. Another chorale prelude by Walter. This is on the Lutheran National Anthem. A Mighty Fortress. So I'm going to play this piece. Now I have this is really kind of sentimental for me because I have a very long relationship with this tune, growing up in the family Lutheran Church, and also with this particular chorale prelude, the Walter, because it was, in fact, believe it or not, the first chorale prelude I learned to play on this tune. Way back when I think I was 14 when I played this. I'm hoping to be better now than I was, but I have played this tune for countless occasions, including, and this is why it sort of conjures up all kinds of memories for me, including the funerals. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but when you're an organist, you generally get tapped to play the funeral of every relative as their number comes up, right? So I've played this chorale prelude for both my two grandmothers' funerals and my grandfather's funeral. My German grandfather, he died when the story is he lived long enough to hold me and then died. I'll let you interpret that. But so this has really sentimental value for me. The other piece that I'm going to play is a really wonderful chorale prelude by Pachelbel, partly to illustrate the fact that Pachelbel wrote more music than just the canon that we played on the Beermonica. So enjoy these two. You'll recognize the tune. help me. I've never done this in 40 years here at Christ Lutheran. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sing again together. I know I said we weren't going to, but I lied. We are going to sing together one more time. Only this time we're going to do, I'm going to get emotional about this. We're going to do A Mighty Fortress the right way. Next slide. Okay? Now, it's a little different than the version that you are familiar with because it's in German. The meter is different too because these are the lyrics that Luther actually wrote. And for those of you who are hymn geeks, the regular English translation meter is 878766668. That's the number of syllables and everything. Luther's poem is much more interesting. It's 878755567. So it's a really interesting tune. It's a really interesting. Luther wrote the tune as well. So I am playing. This is the setting. This is actually the setting from a hymnal I have in my vast collection of hymnals from Württemberg. It was published in 1873, and it has the harmonization of this tune that you're going to hear right now. So here we go. I'll play a little introduction, and we'll see how we do with this in German. So again, A Mighty Fortress the right way. Here we go. I should have memorized that because it's hard to play. I get very emotional about this. This reminds me so much of my, time at my German granny's house, and we would sing all these German songs, and I just sort of internalized that. So it's hard to play when you're like trying to see through your. All right. So thank you for indulging me. That was really fun. I appreciate it. Now, let's see what else do we have in store here. Well, I guess we're just about at the end. We've done our sing-along. I do have one more little piece of BS that I want to share with you. So I think many of you were here on the Sunday that I announced my retirement. And on that Sunday, after weeks of diligent effort, Pastor Drew talked me into giving the unsermon that Sunday. And in the unsermon, I told a story about my young organist self. And the brief version of it is I was terrified to play in front of people. I hated it. I was a nervous wreck for days and days until I accidentally fell into impersonating a pastor at a graveside ceremony because there was nobody else to do it, and I was just sort of overcome with a sense of duty and compassion for the people, right? And ever since that moment, I've never really been afraid to get up in front of people and do stuff, no matter how silly or bad it might be, right? I think I also have shared with you that my mom, who she's dead now, but my mom, for all of her life, harbored a dream that I would become a Lutheran pastor and a man of the cloth. And the thing that's kind of funny about this is that she herself was actually on the Religion of the Month plan. She changed religions basically monthly, and she would be really seriously devout Buddhist, vegetarian and all, and then the next month she would eat a side of beef from some strange Zoroastrian thing. But through all of her religious wanderings, she never wavered from this idea that sooner or later I would wake up and smell the coffee and go to seminary and become a Lutheran pastor, not a minister, but a Lutheran pastor, right? I never had that dream, right? I had other plans and became a philosopher instead. But what I wanted to share with you is the rest of the story of the graveside ceremony, because I think, even now, I think it's one of the great ironies of my life as a church musician, and it's also hilarious. So we finished up there at the service where the minister had bailed. I went to the car. We had our usual conversation about should we go to the graveside ceremony. This is the conversation that my family had anytime I played a funeral for a non-relative, because my mom thought it was like party crashing if you went to the graveside ceremony of somebody that wasn't a relative of yours. So I'm there in the back seat, 16-year-old me, and I said, no, we have to go. And I explained why, and my parents did not utter a word, not a word. My dad guided the car into the funeral procession. We go out there. I get out of the car, do my thing at the thing, blah, blah. My dad and I are walking back. He said to me, I don't know how you did that. It's the only thing he said about this incident ever. And my reply to him pretty much sums it up. I said, because I'm an organist. I mean, to me, in my 16-year-old head, that is exactly what the rationale was, right? And here is the supreme irony of all these years of being a church musician. My mom, who wanted me more than anything else to be a Lutheran pastor, was convinced that I would make a complete ass of myself, so she stayed in the car and missed the whole thing. My one brush with impersonating a pastor, and she missed it. I just love it. I think that's hysterical. All right, everybody. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to play the Bach Prelude and Fugue as promised that day. I'm going to attempt to play it. It's been a long day. We'll see how it goes. So buckle up. Let me get everything ready. Let's see. First, where is it? Here it is. Now the registration. All right, here we go. Well, actually, there is something I forgot. I really want to get this in. So some of you are familiar with my sermon that I wrote. This was a parody also. The sermon is called Why Church Musicians Are Grumpy, right? So in that sermon, I talk about one of the main reasons that church musicians get grumpy and bitter as time goes by, and it's PTSD. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not post-traumatic stress disorder. That's a different thing. That's a serious health issue, and it really, you need to take care of that as a health issue, right? What I'm talking about is the other PTSD, post-theological seminary disorder. This is the belief that because you have sat through a class on liturgics, you're qualified to tell musicians how to play their instrument. Right? It's just soul destroying for musicians to be told how to play their instrument, how to do what they do by somebody who has no idea what they're talking about, right? And I just wanted to put that on the table for you to reflect on, because many times church musicians get, old and angry and bitter, but there might be legitimate reasons why they get old and grumpy. I myself have somehow had the vaccine. So I'm not grumpy and bitter, but I am going to retire before it goes any further. So, all right, now back to the Bach thing. Oh, wait, no, I'm not finished yet. So the other thing I wanted to say, now, and I really mean this sincerely. Christ Lutheran is lucky to have a pastor in Pastor Drew who does not suffer from PTSD. He's great. We have a wonderful working relationship. I love working with him, and that is not, in case any rumors are going around, the reason I'm retiring. I did tell him, though, when he was new, just between him and me, I said, I just want you to know, I've been here, I've outlasted all the previous pastors. So, in terms, not of longevity, but in terms of continuity, Pastor Drew has the distinction of being the first pastor who's going to outlast me. And I just want you to know how lucky you are to have a pastor. And I have the explanation for it. The explanation is this: he's actually a musician himself. Being a musician, in other words, having to go through the challenge of mastering an instrument to the level that he is on a guitar, for instance, it protects you from developing PTSD when it comes to other people and their instruments, because you start to realize how much you don't know that somebody who's spent, 10, 15 years developing a skill may know that you don't know. So it's wonderful to work with Pastor Drew. It's been a joy, and it's been my delight, really, to have a pastor who really is a partner in creating the worship experience for this community. So thank you, Pastor Drew. I appreciate it. Okay, so now we'll try the Bach again, okay? Well, actually, I forgot one thing. For this Bach, I'm going to need a page turner, so I'm going to call Natalie up here. But first, I want to say this. I'd like to be able to tell you that music and playing the organ and everything is like the great love of my life, but it's not. It comes in at best second to Natalie, who, yeah. So she's going to turn pages for me, which anybody who has had to do that will tell you is a notoriously fraught experience. So I really appreciate that. Okay, let's go. Here we go. Thanks. That was fun. That was really fun. Thank you. I hope you have had a good time tonight. I'm going to now hand things over to Pastor Drew to give us our dismissal and cookies.
I get not only the prelude tonight, I get the postlude too. Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you all for being here. And I know that there are some wonderful and delicious cookies waiting for us in just a second, and I want you to be safe on your way home. But I want you to join me one more time in giving thanks for Matthew. Really, truly. What a wonderful evening of music, and not the last time we will, but a time to say thank you so much for 40 years of ministry here at Christ Lutheran Church. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Enjoy the cookie.
Yeah, go in peace, serve the Lord, be safe on the way home, enjoy some cookies. Thank you, Natalie, for those cookies too. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. And it was because they wouldn't let me bring my. That's what they told me. All right, cool. That's very cool. Come on.